Right as Kendrick Lamar dropped his new album GNX, Drake announced that he was suing Spotify and Universal, claiming that Kendrick Lamar's smash hit and the final nail in Drake's coffin, Not Like Us, was artificially inflated by bots and fake views and fake downloads. Drake dropped a lawsuit before he dropped a good response record. So naturally, the internet goes bonkers. The memes, the jokes are flying, the clowning is incessant. Drake is essentially suing the guy who beat him in a rap battle, which you cannot script a lamer response in the world of hip-hop. Rap battles are supposed to be like gladiators going at it. It's supposed to be like heavyweight boxing champions stepping in the ring, and this would be like getting your ass beat in a boxing match and then suing because you lost. So I understand the reaction from people all across the internet. But at the same time, what Drake is actually doing has nothing to do with Kendrick Lamar and the battle. What Drake is actually doing is taking on the music industry. He's taking on the labels and the music execs and the DSPs, who are quite literally the worst. In the modern era of digital streams, the music industry is basically holding artists hostage. They're like slaves under some of the most despicable business terms ever. We're talking artists accumulating billions of streams and receiving literally, not virtually, literally pennies for it. It's a model that one day inevitably has to break. Once music became digital, these platforms out of the gates, who could host all the music, seemingly held all the cards, and they basically had all the leverage over every artist except for a few names. And as it's become more and more public that you could become a mega famous artist with millions of people listening to your music, but the only way you'll really become rich is by busting your ass for years on end on a world tour, it just feels like eventually there was going to be some sort of revolution, like the writers in entertainment having a writer's strike. I always personally believe that eventually music artists would band together and they would reject that. I don't know enough about the music industry and the legal world to know whether that's actually possible. Like they could become a literal union, or maybe it's in a figurative sense and a less official capacity. But whether it's a year from now or 20 years from now, eventually that model was going to be broken. The labels are, while still doing their best to keep their stranglehold over the industry with their bullshit tactics, they're becoming less and less necessary. And in the modern age with DSPs, while they are extremely important in terms of tech and distribution, they simply don't have a product if the artists don't create. So to me, at least, that seems like a formula where eventually the light bulb goes off in some of these artists' head and they say, all right, fuck this system. We're putting an end to this indentured servitude. Drake started to test the waters when he dropped 100 gigs. Not only because now record deals are paying artists based on their online footprint, and what better way to show your internet value than by having your fans listen to your music on your own website and your own social media pages, but also because he wanted to start to show these guys that an artist of his size, I don't need you corrupt fucks. I don't need you involved in my business, and I'm going to show you exactly how. So with all that being said, I think there are three things happening simultaneously. A, suing over a diss track being too popular is objectively lame. Litigation in general is not cool. It's snitching, it's pussy, it's weak. All of those things are lame, particularly within the rap world. If ego and pride and power are currency, you suing your opponent in any fashion is showing that you're currently bankrupt. Hip-hop culture is never going to embrace any form of snitching. And in a battle where the war cry against Drake was that he's not like us, this solidifies it. I'm not, fully qualified to speak on this matter, but I would imagine that a lot of the rap industry and black culture view this as white people shit, right? Suing when you lose is Karen behavior. That's what white people do. They ask for the manager. Suing is like asking for the ultimate manager. So not only is suing over a diss track when you lost the battle objectively lame, but there's another layer for a guy who is a light-skinned, biracial, half-Jewish rapper who's always been accused of not truly being a part of the culture, and he's only taking from it. It's like people are saying, like, hey, Drake, your white side is showing. And whether or not that's right or wrong or racist, I don't know, but that's just simply a fact. And with the exception of a few guys, from Eminem all the way back to like MC Search, white people shit is just generally viewed as lame in hip-hop. That's, again, just a fact. Number two, while all of that is true, everything I just said is true, simultaneously, what Drake is doing might be the most important thing in modern music history, and that's taking on the music industry. Exposing Spotify and the labels for colluding and forcing them to potentially open up their books for public record, that could potentially change music for the better forever. The lawsuit is not about Kendrick Lamar. It's about the shady, shadowy, seedy billionaires getting exposed for being the shitbags that they are. Think about any time there's been a labor dispute in sports. There's always the typical take of like, these are just all both millionaires complaining over each other about a game. But anyone with half a brain knows that it's the owners who are being greedy scumbags. And yes, athletes make millions, but owners make billions. And while every athlete's contract is public knowledge, the owner's books are completely private. There is no public knowledge over the sort of profits they take in from television rights and ticket sales and all the various ways that owners make way more money than the individual contracts handed out to players. So while there's always a few assholes being like, I have no sympathy, that guy makes millions of dollars to swing a bat a few times a day, anyone with half a brain usually realizes it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And that the athletes who make it as popular as it is, they deserve an equitable amount, if not the lion's share, of the money generated by it. Whether or not you think the job is difficult is irrelevant. The comparisons people make to they're not coal miners, they're not digging ditches, that's irrelevant. Pro sports makes billions for a reason. And that reason is the athletes that play. So that little detour about sports that we just took, that all applies here. Because if you're siding with UMG and Spotify, you fucking suck. That's like siding with the owners in sports. The guys like John Fisher, the owner of the Oakland Athletics, they would rather watch their team flounder and fail and eventually move cities before they reached into their fat fucking billionaire wallets to pay a single cent for the product that the fans deserve. That's the UMGs and the Spotifys of the world. They're the John Fishers. Paying 0.003 pennies per stream is Oakland A's behavior. Just exploiting the system and keeping all the profits for yourself simply because you can. Minus a few artists like Taylor and Drake himself, there's nobody in the music industry making what they deserve. And legitimately, no regular person, as a music fan or just a normal-ass, working-class person, should ever side with big business shitheads who care about nothing but their own self-interests. Which brings me to the third point of what's happening here. D. Drake is hated by so many people, so much, that people are actually out there doing that and siding with these fucking billionaires. You are so anti-Drake that it makes you side with Universal CEO Lucian Grange, or with Sony Music's Robert Stringer, or Warner's Robert Kyncl. I don't even know how to say that guy's fucking name. How do you have a name? Kyncl. How the fuck do you not have a single vowel in your last name? That's some true villain shit if I've ever seen it. That's like some Superman Mitzelpick shit. You just say that asshole's name and you just poof, disappear. These guys are the super villains. I promise you. No matter how much you hate Drake, and believe me, I know all the reasons. Like DMX said, and then Kendrick eventually said, I hate the way that he walks, I hate the way that he talks, I hate the way that he dresses, okay? Drizzy BBL, the fucking hair braids, the code switching, the culture vulture behavior, the overall corniness and cringiness. You add up all of that, and you are still not even approaching how much music labels and executives fucking suck. If it was a different artist that was taking on the labels and the executives, everybody would be praising them. Because based on the facts of the matter, the general public would always automatically side with an artist over the label. If some anti-establishment, punk rock, fuck the man artist was leading the cause, they would be regarded as a hero. If this was Rage Against the Machine before they became Rage for the Machine, it would be called a revolution. But it's Drake, so people are failing to see the forest through the trees. People are letting their hatred for one guy blind them to the actual substance of the argument here. And I hate to do this because Lord knows it gets injected to just about everything these days. But this whole Drake situation has spiraled so far out of control, it's turning into politics. I know, like I said, I know no one wants another political diatribe, but it's actually pretty interesting to see how the political practices have made its way into just about every matter in the world now. Because right now, this is a situation where people will look past absolutely everything just to say that the side that they don't like is losing. Think about it this way. Drake is trying to take down the establishment. That's the same one that Kendrick Lamar is in bed with. And I suppose that's a matter of opinion and not fact. But I believe 100% that the bots and the payola and the corruption that's mentioned in this lawsuit is most certainly going on. It's not just for Kendrick, though. I believe Drake was benefiting off of that system just as well. Like, there's a few people, Kendrick, Drake, and the big dogs, that benefit from this, and that system fucks the rest of the artists. So Drake is basically blowing the whistle and taking on the man, while Kendrick is riding pretty much every possible wave of every institution he possibly can, from the music labels to the fucking corrupt-ass Grammys to the Pulitzer Prize award-winning committee, now the NFL. But somehow, Drake is the problem, right? Mr. Watch the Party Die, Kendrick Lamar, whose name has basically become synonymous with every single big business from music to now the NFL, is somehow the people's champ? That is about as ridiculous as middle America making Donald Trump the hero of the working class. That is completely fucking backwards. The party is not dying, and Kendrick certainly ain't the one killing it. He is the party right now. But nobody wants to hear that. Why? Because the shit that Drake does is viciously lame and indefensible. It's the same thing that goes on with LeBron James. LeBron James is 1,000 years old. He is still putting up triple doubles. He is draped in titles and awards and accolades. He is literally the best of all time, but there are people that will treat him like he's a fucking bum because it's unbearable when he complains and he flops and he pretends to read books and he makes up stories that never happened. So I can totally understand being a Drake hater, particularly with all the aforementioned cultural implications that I'm not really qualified to speak on. So when I see tweets like this, that's a well-articulated, albeit I think overly dramatic tweet, but I can't deny that. All of what he said there is true, but it doesn't take away from what's really going on here. The people who are still talking about the beef, the people who still think this is about Kendrick Lamar are 1,000 miles off base here. This is well above Kendrick Lamar's pay grade. Give Kendrick a run of like 10 more years of this level where he's at, and then once he's sitting at the table with guys like Lucian Grange, I guarantee you he would be sitting in the same exact seat as Drake. That the beef was the shot heard around the world that launched the real war. So I say all of that while still knowing that it's absurd coming from Drake, the guy who benefited from the same corrupt system for years. Pretty much everything I said about Kendrick can be said for Drake's career right up until this moment. Although there are some people who think that this is actually like truly political, and this started a little while back after Drake signed a petition to support Gaza when Universal is supporting Israel. But I ain't touching that one with a 10,000-foot pole. We ain't going down that road. But ultimately, it comes down to this. I know that Drake was and is the machine, and I know he benefited greatly off of it up until all of a sudden they extended those same benefits to someone else that he didn't care for. And him using that big fat L as the jump off point for this war with the man is undoubtedly lame. I wish he used a better catalyst. I wish he didn't tie it to his embarrassment, because that's how you know deep down this is all coming from a place of his ego being injured and not actually caring about the rest of the artists and the music world itself. If he wins the Kendrick battle, he's not rocking the boat like this. That is very obvious. But two things on that matter. Number one, sometimes you do the right thing for the wrong reason. And it's some, enemy of my enemy is my friend type shit. You should side with Drake in this particular matter. Kendrick Lamar himself would ultimately want what Drake wants here, which is to break up this sort of monopoly that the labels and the tech apps have together. Right now, though, Kendrick is riding the ultimate high. He's being provided all of this by those same entities, so he would never admit it. But again, you give this guy a decade of realizing that you're the puppet and not really the partner, and I guarantee things would change. Which then brings me to point two. Looking at it from Drake's point of view, I can understand why he's turning around and saying, fuck you, to the guys he got in bed with. Because while it's super convenient to pull all this right after losing a battle, it also makes perfect sense. He signed a deal that is a much bigger partnership than the average artist, right? It's a $400 million deal that basically made him a part owner of the team and not just playing for the team, right? And then not only does he realize that he's propping up the whole rap industry and is probably still wildly underpaid, but B, at the first chance they get, those motherfuckers side with Kendrick Lamar and try to take Drake down. So imagine you team up with someone, basically make a company with them, and then at the first chance they get during a rap beef, they side against you. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that happening to someone?
Fuck Kevin Clancy, you should have left it alone.
Anyway, it all boils down to Drake realizing, wait a minute, aside from Taylor Swift, I basically keep you rich and in business, and then you turn around and invest in the guy who is specifically trying to take me down. My revenue being used against me. All the work that I do for you, and this is the thanks I get? Again, who would ever put up with that? I'm just saying I can understand where he's coming from. It's maybe not perfect, maybe not fully justifiable. It's definitely not coming from a heroic place, and it is certainly not relatable to the average person. But I get the logic when one of the major pieces of the music puzzle is all of a sudden cut out, and he turns around and says, fuck off, I'm going to burn this whole bitch down. I personally think that siding with Kendrick only expedited Drake trying to take them down, but I think they view this as we're going to try to take him out before he can try to take us out. They're going to run this nearly perfectly executed smear campaign on him so he doesn't have the same popularity and power and sway to win this war. Drake tested them with 100 gigs and that separate website to listen to music, and now he's going right at him. That's a good thing. And it's hard to reconcile the motivations behind it, and it's hard to reconcile a lot of Drake's behavior. But at least try to see the bigger picture here. And if not, fine. You can continue to talk about your boy K-Bot. You can continue to think that this is all about bot like us. And I know that's where it all stemmed from. But like I said, the rap battle, it's like two heavyweight boxers going at it. But just imagine that after losing the match, one of those boxers went after the boxing commission and Vegas and everybody for being the most corrupt sport imaginable. It has nothing to do with the opponent he just lost to, other than the fact that it was the loss that hurt him so much that he finally took on the larger battle. That's the real issue that's going on here. But if you want to just say that Drake is a corny bitch who lost and now he's lawyering up because he's a fucking pussy who can't take a loss like a man, you can do that too. I get it. But at least acknowledge the bigger picture of what's going on here.